Why did Lizzie leave so quickly? Wondered Joe. It's not like her, Caitlin said thoughtfully. Maybe she just wanted to get going before dawn. Pfft, not likely, remarked her driver. I'll bet she had a run-in with that death engine of hers. You think? Yep. It would serve her right, really. Joe and Caitlin left uneasily, still in doubt as to whether there really was a Hackney Death Engine. Neither engine nor crewman saw a light disappear behind the cutting as they made their way home. So, you're telling me that Lizzie is, or was, spooked by some sort of death engine? Joe was talking to Duchess about the incident while the 2P rested after a long express journey. It was now morning, so most of the worries surrounding the calamity had died down. Yeah, we were shunting when Caitlin and I heard a whistle and a scream. We hurried over to Lizzie and she was nearly as white as a sheet. Duchess pondered. Tell me, Joe, about this death engine. Describe it to me. Joe explained everything he could about the Hackney Death Engine, the story, the encounter, and the way home. And that's it. Duchess stared at the ballast in thought. She then looked at Joe, then back to the ballast, before suddenly looking up, gravely serious. Joe. The J-88 tensed. He'd never heard Duchess sound so stern. That Hackney Death Engine is no story. It's a real accident. What? Everything you've told me, it all happened. It's been well over 80 years since anybody's even thought of it. Joe was petrified. Duchess let a sad, dutiful sigh escape her as she let off steam. Oh dear, she groaned. It seems like I have to set a few records straight. Tell everyone to wait for me tonight, she instructed as she puffed away. Joe was worried. What would Duchess say? Was there really a Hackney Death Engine? That night, everyone fell silent as Duchess rolled into her berth. They'd all received Joe's message and were waiting for the mystery to be revealed. No one dared to speak. Well now, I suppose you all want to know what truly happened, began Duchess. If so, I will tell you. Duchess, it's not really true, right? There can't be such an incident, can there? Asked Julie. My dear Engine, there are little to no people alive who know of the incident. That's why some would say it is a myth or a legend. But it's not true, right? As much as I don't want to say so, yes. Julie, that incident is as real as the rails we run on. Julie fell silent in shock. How do you know? Shivered Louise. You're not that old, are you? For once, Duchess got to the prairie before Julie. Louise, this is a very serious incident. Please remain silent or go and sleep somewhere else. No one said a word. Duchess sighed and her voice grew softer. I was built well over 60 years after the incident took place, so I wasn't there. My first driver, however, told me of the incident when I was newly built. He was only a boy at that time, so he knew everything. Everyone listened quietly and intently as Duchess told the real story. It took place on a night much like last night. Cold, dark and gloomy, with only the moon in the sky. I recall my driver telling me that a small 040 engine was sent to work the yards. He came in, dutifully did the work required, and prepared to leave. According to my driver, the engine did hear a signalman coming, but couldn't stop until it was too late. The signalman was knocked unconscious by the buffer beam, but the damage was done. The driver did all he could, but the little engine was convinced that the poor man was dead, and much worse was to come. Beforehand, the signalman had accepted an express train through without realising another engine or its crew were blocking the way. Too late, he'd realised his mistake and gone out to alert the engine. But sadly, that never happened. Duchess deliberately trailed off. "Then what?" whispered Julie. Duchess bided her time before speaking. "Well, as you can imagine, the express came through being completely ignorant of the danger ahead. It rounded the corner and—" "No!" Lizzie gasped, cutting her off. "Say it's not so," pleaded Louise. But by Duchess's expression, everyone knew what had happened. Julie simply closed her eyes and remained silent. Louise and Lizzie shivered and reeled back in shock, and Jo and Caitlin looked to each other for comfort, painfully sighing or gasping. Even Duchess couldn't help but feel hollow as she told her story. No one on board the express reached Newton Abbot that night. The most immediate rolling stock and the express engine were written off and immediately sold for scrap. The other engine, however, did manage to have a small number of salvageable parts sold on before he too was scrapped. Sometime after the accident, the old signal box was moved. The official reason was that both the yards and the main line couldn't be easily seen, so the box was ordered to be relocated. But most of the men believed it was due to the superstition surrounding the accident that the box was moved. And I'm afraid I must agree with them. Anyway, a year after the incident, sightings of an unidentified 040 engine suddenly appearing, then disappearing were reported, and many instantly assumed it was the unfortunate engine sent to work the yards. Some thought he was plotting his revenge, whereas others believed he was simply keeping a lookout for his missing parts. After a while, the sightings seemed to disappear, until 10 years to the day after the accident, when the engine struck again. His poor victim was nearly written off, and that reminded the railwaymen not to joke about this ghost engine, quickly giving him the title, the Hackney Death Engine. The engines were fast asleep after a haunting 2 days' worth of events, so only Duchess was awake. Her mind had been brooding fiercely over the evening's events, and now, with the moon once again present in a starless sky, the old engine had a chance for peaceful reflection. After a while, she heard a soft but grated puffing noise, and a wistful smile came on her face as the ghostly white silhouette of the Hackney Death Engine pulled alongside the shed. It stopped with a quick whoosh of steam. "I felt this was necessary," murmured Duchess. "If I hadn't have revealed the truth, future events might be completely different." The engine let off steam. Again, more harsh. "I am aware of that, thank you," snipped the P2 firmly. "Our country is at war, and with that in mind, we can't have another pressing issue to deal with. Everyone must give their full effort if we as a nation want to win." The ghost fell silent, its shape dancing in the night breeze like a will-o'-the-wisp. "Yes," smiled Duchess, "even the younger ones. I believe that their eagerness and potential really can outshine the lack of knowledge or experience." The spectre let off steam again, slowly and gently. "No," Duchess was resolute. "You leave little Jo and Caitlin alone. They were nothing to do with your accident. Times have changed very much." The engine fell still once more. "Much more than you could ever dream of," Duchess stated. "If you're still vowing for revenge, Everyone involved in the incident is long since gone, and there are no spare parts left with which to help you. But not all is lost, she said quietly, almost respectfully. I think that your work is done. Even though there is no engine or no parts to find, you have gained the respect you deserve. I dare say no one shall be dim-witted enough to try and disrespect you again. Not any more. The engine softly blew off steam before beginning to move off. Adieu, called Duchess. I sincerely hope you may now rest in peace. There was no reply as the engine faded away. It was only after Duchess fell asleep that a long, echoing whistle cried out across the yards. And that would be the last time anyone, steam locomotive or man, saw or mentioned the Hackney Yard Death Engine.